Beacon Press Audio presents Midnight in Vehicle City, General Motors, Flint, and the Strike That Created the Middle Class, by Edward Mcclelland. This audiobook is narrated by Jeff Zinn, published by Beacon Press Audio, 2020. Introduction: Vehicle City. More than 100 years ago, a series of wrought iron arches were erected across Saginaw Street, the main drag of downtown Flint, Michigan. They spelled out in white letters Flint's nickname, its slogan, its reason for existence: Vehicle City. Detroit may have built more cars than Flint, but Flint was the nation's transportation pioneer. First as a carriage maker, then as the birthplace of General Motors, the nation's leading automaker. By the mid-1930s, the Vehicle City was even more dependent on the auto industry than the Motor City. More than 3/4 of the workforce drew a paycheck from GM or one of its suppliers. William Crapo Durant, the man who would one day found General Motors, the largest corporation in the history of the world, got into the transportation business by building horse-drawn buggies. Durant was a scion of the industry on which Flint, Michigan had been founded, lumbering. His grandfather, Henry Howland Crapo, was a New England school teacher who gambled on the purchase of a $150,000 tract of Michigan pine land, won, and became so wealthy and respected that he was elected governor in 1864, only 10 years after his arrival to the state. At the lumber industry's zenith, Flint's mills were sawing 90 million feet of virgin jack pine a year. By the end of the 1870s, though, the forests of the Flint River Valley were so depleted that the lumber kings began casting about for a new industry to save the town from economic devastation. They settled on horse-drawn vehicles. Durant paid $2,000 to buy out a buggy maker. He moved the company to Flint, renamed it the Flint Road Cart Company, and was soon producing 400 two-wheeled sulkies a day in a shop down by the Flint River. By the turn of the century, Flint was turning out more than 100,000 horse-drawn conveyances a year, more than any other city in the nation. The Vehicle City arches were erected to celebrate this distinction in 1901, just as the horse and steam-powered 19th century was giving way to the gasoline-powered 20th. Even as Flint was touting itself as the world's leading producer of buggies, wagons, and carriages, there was a feeling among its forward-looking citizens that the Vehicle City was building the wrong vehicles. Elsewhere in Michigan, Detroit's Henry Ford and Lansing's Ransom Eli Olds had already designed the cars that would bear their names, but the only motor car in Flint, assembled by a judge in his carriage house, was such a feeble machine that it stalled trying to drive over the raised wooden crosswalks of downtown intersections. The Flint Wagon Works, a rival of Durant's, spent $10,000 to purchase the creation of a Detroit tinkerer named David Dunbar Buick, the Model A, the first automobile with a valve-in-head engine. As part of the deal, both the Buick's assembly and Buick himself moved to Flint. Flint is the most natural center for the manufacture of autos in the whole country, the Flint Daily Journal wrote in an editorial celebrating the transaction. It is the Vehicle City of the United States, and in order to maintain the name by which it is known from ocean to ocean, there must be developed factories here for the manufacture of the automobile. The buyers asked Durant to run Buick, impressed that he had built Flint Road Cart from a $2,000 investment to an enterprise bringing in $2 million a year. The horse and buggy man was not a fan of automobiles, but a country drive in a Buick convinced Durant it was a capable machine, only rarely defeated by ruts or mud. Also, pedestrians wanted a closer look at the car, which appealed to his salesman's instincts. Believing it his civic duty to take part in Flint's next big thing, Durant signed on. Setting up shop in the old Flint wagon works, Buick built 40 cars that first year. By 1906, the automaker had outgrown the wagon shop and moved into a new 3-story plant on an old North End farm along a newly laid-out street named Industrial Avenue. Durant, who loved the big deal, saw the automobile as his ticket to becoming an industrial titan as wealthy and influential as Andrew Carnegie. To achieve that goal, he decided to organize an auto trust of all the major manufacturers based on the model of Carnegie's United States Steel. On September 16, 1908, the Buick and Oldsmobile companies merged by means of a stock swap to form the General Motors Corporation. Durant had also approached Henry Ford, but the cantankerous engineer wanted cash rather than stock. The ambitious Durant quickly acquired a third auto company, located in Pontiac. Then, feeling he had to add a Detroit automaker to his portfolio, he paid $3.5 million for the Cadillac Motor Company. The classic GM 5-brand lineup became complete in 1917, when Durant brought in a model founded by a mustachioed Swiss auto racer named Louis Chevrolet. The Chevrolet Royal Mail, a $750 4-cylinder roadster, was neither as cheap nor as popular as Ford's Model T, but the masses bought it nonetheless, and it established Chevrolet's future position as the bottom rung of GM's price for every purse brand ladder. Flint, which had begun the first decade of the century with a single hand-assembled motor car, was by that decade's end the second city of the auto industry, behind only Detroit. In 1910, 1 out of every 6 automobiles sold in the United States was a Buick, a total of 30,525 cars. The demand for Buicks meant a demand for workers to build Buicks. In the 1900s, Flint's population tripled from 13,103 to 38,550, making it the fastest-growing industrial city in the nation. The plants were so desperate for workers, they dispatched agents to the rural South, offering train tickets to Flint. The offer was discontinued after hobos figured out it was a free ride. Flint was so overwhelmed with young men leaving their farms to build cars that the old sawmill settlement had nowhere to house them. Boarding house keepers rented beds in shifts, sometimes requiring men to sleep double, but even so, at least 1,000 auto workers were unable to find indoor accommodations. The homeless men set up camps along the river or in the woods within walking distance of the shops. They lived in piano crates or railroad cars or pitched tents, forking over a Liberty dime every week to shower at the Flint Vehicle Factories Mutual Benefit Association, where they could also amuse themselves in the gym, library, billiard room, or bowling alley. One well-to-do crate dweller had a $400 dining set delivered to his residence. With so much money flowing through the hands of so many single men, Flint was a wild North boomtown. Saginaw Street's weekly highlight was no longer Saturday morning market day, but Saturday night payday. Flint auto workers earned an average of $2.61 a day, the highest industrial wage in Michigan, and plenty of them spent the checks as soon as they could cash them. Saginaw Street was a sight, with these electric arches lit up in many colors from Court Street to the bridge, store windows incandescent, horses stamping at the curb, sidewalks overflowing with life, wrote Flint Journal reporter Frank Rodolph in his Industrial History of Flint.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?